What's up, everybody? I'm James Withy, and today we're going to talk about fine line tattoos. So a while ago, when I was making YouTube videos consistently, I had a lot of people ask me to make a video on fine line tattoos because that is a style that is very trendy right now. And because I know a lot about that style and I do that style, I thought today when I was trying to figure out what to make a video about that I would talk about that. So that's exactly what we're going to do. In this video, I am going to talk about what a fine line tattoo is. I'm also going to talk about where fine line tattooing came from, and I'm going to talk about how it became popular and why it's trending right now. And I'm also going to talk about whether or not fine line tattoos age well, because that seems to be the million-dollar question surrounding that particular tattoo style. So first things first, what is a fine line tattoo? It should be a pretty simple explanation, but there is some overlap when it comes to other tattoo styles that people picture in their minds when they're thinking about a fine line tattoo, such as micro tattooing. With that said, the most basic, simple way I can put it is that a fine line tattoo is a tattoo that has its outlines or edges done with small liner configurations as far as needle groupings. And what that means is that the lines are done with a needle configuration that has 5 needles or less, in my opinion. So when it comes to needle configurations, you have round needle configurations where the needles are kind of like, if my fingers were the tips of the needles, then they would be shaped like this. That'd be like 5 of them. Then there could be like 3 of them, right? Then there could be just a single needle that pokes the skin. These round needle configurations go all the way up to 9 liners, which are very common for traditional tattoos, 9 round liners, or they could have 14 needles on them and be a round configuration of needles with 14 needles poking into the skin with every single puncture. Fine line tattoos, like I said, have 5 needles or less for the liner that's used on them and do not have bold outlines as seen in traditional tattoos. And that is pretty much the basic definition of what a fine line tattoo is a tattoo that's done with small liners. Now, as far as the way fine line tattoos are shaded, I would say that, most of the time fine line tattoos involve some shading with a liner, which is called pepper shading or whip shading. Basically, it just means that you're using dots that are distributed over, varying degrees of area that will create the optical illusion of a gradient, almost like how pointillism or stippling would be, right? Whereas most professional tattooers, if they're not doing a fine line tattoo, they're typically going to do their shading with a shader needle, such as a mag, which is more shaped like a paintbrush and doesn't have like that, round configuration to it. It's more like, it's like this. It's like a broom almost. If you can imagine that, that's how the needles are configured, or almost like the bristles of a broom. And they pass across the skin with that, or sometimes they'll do circular motions and pack color in. And it creates a little bit of a different look. It's not pointillism, it's not peppery, but it is more of a solid color packing or a smooth, almost like paintbrush type of look to its to the stroke and the result of that hand motion and that needle grouping. Now, I know that's a little bit technical. I'll try to include some B-roll for this so that you can understand what I was talking about while I was explaining that. But sure, let me go ahead and get on to the next point. Where did fine line tattoos come from? Fine line tattoos, look, I'm no tattoo historian, so this is just like my opinion from the knowledge that I have tattooing professionally for 12 years and also having a lot of experience with fine line tattoos. I think that fine line tattoos probably have existed since the beginning of tattooing, because tattooing with one needle is kind of like the logical beginning, right? The first tattoos were probably done with one needle, and then slowly they increased the amount of needles on a needle bar as they learned how to solder extra ones on there and create that new type of tool to do tattoos with. So I feel like fine line tattoos have probably always existed as long as tattooing has. But as far as where they became really popular and where they the technique for them got very highly developed, I think personally that it was in prison, the American prison system. So this has some overlap with black and gray tattoos. That's also where black and gray tattoos came from as a style, was in prison, particularly on the West Coast in California, which is the reason why a lot of people in the Southwest, such as myself, do black and gray tattoos. And in prison, all the tattoos that are done in there are single needle. So they all qualify as fine line tattoos. And I know that because I've been there. I was in there for 6 years. So they originated in there, and that style got, the technique for it got pretty much developed in there. And then later on, they started becoming popular out here, like in the regular professional tattoo world. Why is that? Why did that happen? Especially in recent years. Why are fine line tattoos trending right now? Why are they a trendy tattoo style right now? Personally, I think that it's probably because a lot more women started getting tattoos. And when I talk about like this timeline right here, I'm talking about recently. And when I say recently, I'm talking about like within the last 20 years or so. So I think a lot more women started getting tattoos. You know, tattoos traditionally in the past were probably a little bit more of a masculine thing to have. And also a lot more women are doing tattoos. So, you know, there's a lot of chicks out there that prefer very bold tattoos and prefer to do very bold tattoos. But I think that a lot of women prefer to have a little bit of a lighter tattoo look. And when I say light, I don't mean light in terms of like a faded looking tattoo, but I'm talking about light in terms of like the weight of the tattoo, like especially literally the line weights of the tattoo. So, you know, I've had women ask me for fine line tattoos and like literally use the word dainty or feminine while they're describing the look that they want. And I think that fine line tattoos naturally look a little bit more dainty and feminine, especially when you're doing them as a standalone piece rather than like an integrated full sleeve or something the way that a lot of people do behind bars, such as a lot of the ones that I have. So I think that women in tattooing, getting tattoos as clients and doing tattoos has had a really big influence on that style becoming popular. And as far as whether or not it is going to be a trend that goes away, I don't think so, because I don't think women are going to stop getting tattoos or doing tattoos. I think it's actually just going to increase, and that style is going to be here to stay. Me and my dog are having an awkward moment right now where she's eating and I can't film, and she senses that I stopped talking because she's eating, and she's like, am I doing anything wrong? And I'm like, no, I'm just going to wait for you. So with that said, does it mean that fine line tattoos are only for women? I personally don't think so. Like I said earlier, I've seen a lot of very manly men in prison get fine line tattoos. And just because you're a man and you get fine line tattoos, it doesn't necessarily mean that, like, you know, it's a feminine looking tattoo. I think that distinction between it looking feminine and it looking masculine has to do with multiple factors. You know, obviously it has to do with subject matter. What is the actual meat and potatoes of like your concept in terms of what you're getting as a tattoo? And like, you know, because obviously if you get fine line flower tattoos with a bunch of branches sticking out and foliage and things like that, that's going to look a little bit more like a woman's tattoo. You know, if you're getting a bunch of like crazy like demons and skulls and shit like that, then that's going to look more like a manly tattoo. And not to say that one of the like women can't get a bunch of demons and skulls and shit, or men can't get a bunch of flowers, but I'm just saying as far as the impression that it gives in terms of masculinity and femininity, it can change quite a bit just based off of subject matter. Not only that, I think that the way that the body composition is planned and executed has a lot to do with whether or not it looks masculine or feminine. Typically, when I think about a sleeve that is comprised of fine line tattoos, if I wanted it to look very feminine, I would leave a lot of empty space in the tattoo, a lot of empty skin in the tattoo. And I might do that by doing small tattoos that, you know, they're like baseball sized or softball sized, and then just like hodgepodging them together all over an arm until it eventually completes a sleeve and there's space in between those tattoos. That can look very feminine. Or you can basically just tattoo the piece in a single piece in a higher key way. And what I mean by that is it looks a little bit lighter in terms of light and dark, like value overall. So, you know, if you want a fine line tattoo to look more masculine, all you have to do is just make it so the values are heavier, even though the line weights aren't heavier. And what I mean by that is like putting more shading, putting more black, and kind of filling the skin in a little bit more, even though there will be some empty skin in it, probably. You know, you can really definitely make it, you can change the look of it within that style is what I'm saying, to suit whatever vision you have as either a client or an artist. Now, with that said, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to include some B-roll of a tattoo that I have on my arm right here that, you know, is basically like a quarter sleeve or almost a half sleeve that I got when I was locked up in a fine line style. It was done single needle. And I'm going to show B-roll of that. And the reason that that's important to show B-roll of is because the next part of this video, like I mentioned earlier, that I'm going to talk about is how fine line tattoos age and whether or not they hold up over time, like the course of decades or a lifetime. So to answer the question, concisely, the answer is yes, fine line tattoos can age well, and in my opinion and my experience, do age well. There's a lot of controversy in the tattoo community regarding this particular subject of whether or not fine line tattoos are going to last. Not only as a style like trending, but also like literally, will the tattoo last in the skin and still look good decades down the line? And my answer to that is a resounding yes, they will last if they are done properly. Sorry, I had to burp right there. So where was I? Yes, they will age well if they are done in a certain way. The tattoos that are on my arm, they were done with a single needle, and they were done with only black ink, no gray wash at all. And what I mean by that is that, well, gray wash, I guess if you want to know what gray wash is, with like a comprehensive explanation, you could just watch my last video. It is called The Difference Between a Black and Gray and a Black and White Tattoo. But to put it in a nutshell, gray wash is just watered down black to create different tones of gray. And the tattoo that I have on my arm was not done with gray wash. It was done with only black ink, only single needle. And the reason it has different gradients and shades in there is because the person that did it used strictly hand pressure and pepper shading, like distributing dots over a wider area to create the illusion of different values, different lights and darks in the piece. Now, is this tattoo particularly good, right? It's got like a Grim Reaper throwing some dice with some flames and stuff, and it's got, you know, hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil skulls with bandanas and everything. You know, from my standpoint currently in my career, it's not a particularly good tattoo, okay? I'm not claiming this tattoo is amazing. It was good for prison standards, and the dude freehanded the entire thing with a ballpoint pen on me. So he was, you know, quite a talented artist in terms of where the standard is in there. But I am showing this tattoo to illustrate to you that the fine line tattoos do age well. And the reason that I'm basically making that claim is because of this tattoo. This tattoo is probably 17 or 18 years old right now, and it looks very, very similar to how it did when I first got it. And if I'm being honest, like there's a lot of traditional tattooers out there that, you know, bag on fine line tattoos and say they're not going to age. If I'm thinking about traditional tattoos that I've seen that are around the same age, some of them look worse, and some of them actually faded more because they had colors in them that faded. And the ones that were totally black and gray, and we're talking about just the black lines and how those spread out and blurred over the course of many years, it's pretty much the same. It's the same amount of fading. It's the same amount of blurring. You know, a fine line tattoo isn't going to age any differently than a well-done fine line tattoo is not going to age any differently than a well-done traditional tattoo. Now, with that said, legibility is definitely a strength of traditional tattoos. That's why I do believe in the saying bold will hold, because being able to recognize what the tattoo is very important. But you know, fine line tattoos are already less legible when they're freshly done. Like from the very beginning, they are not as legible as traditional tattoos. So I guess now that I'm talking myself through it, yeah, they're gonna age about the same. Traditional tattoos are probably gonna age better, but that doesn't necessarily mean that fine line tattoos age poorly when compared to how they looked when they were originally done. Now, with that said, there is a caveat to that, and that is, I'm gonna go ahead and talk about when a fine line tattoo wouldn't age well, because that is, you know, there are certainly fine line tattoos out there that I see that I know will not hold up over time. And what they all have in common, I would say, as a professional artist, is that they are undersaturated, meaning they don't have enough ink in the skin. The pigment is not packed densely enough for them to hold up over time. Like if you're pulling an outline with a tattoo machine and that outline is like too skippy and has like too much empty skin in the outline in that one line, then that's not going to age very well compared to an outline that is deliberately pulled and has like very closely spaced punctures from the needle that completely saturate that outline. Those lines are going to hold up if they're completely saturated. Likewise, if they are done with some black ink in them, they are going to age well. Whereas if a fine line tattoo is done with, you know, pretty much all color, it's probably not going to age very well. But that doesn't necessarily, that's not something that applies only to fine line tattoos. You could do a traditional tattoo that's all color and it's probably not going to age very well. Tattoos that age well, in my opinion, should have black in them. If you don't care about your tattoo aging well, like I said, you do you. But if you want your tattoo to age well, it needs to have black in it. Does it need a lot of black? No. But how much black it needs depends on what the subject is, you know, what the concept is, and what's important to you in terms of the look of it and, you know, the style of it and everything. But it does need black. It needs black to age well, and it needs to be saturated well, not only in the outlines, but, you know, sometimes in other areas where that's necessary for like a tone to hold up, like a chunk of value to hold up in the skin. So like I said, I have seen some tattoos that are done in a fine line style that I don't think will age well. I have seen some, particularly where most, if not all of the outlines are done with a very light gray wash, where the ink is very, very watered down because they want to achieve like a really light faded look to the tattoo to begin with. And while some people might prefer that and don't care how their tattoo ages, again, you do you. I personally think that it's important for a tattoo to have longevity. And I think that most people, even if they do get a tattoo and don't care about longevity, 15 years down the line, they probably will look back on it and think, I should have cared about it. So, you know, if you do a tattoo that has only light gray wash in it, even if those outlines in it are fully saturated, it's probably not going to hold up over time. If you do a tattoo, like I was talking about, that's like all color outlines, then it's probably not going to hold up very well. And that certainly applies to all styles of tattooing, not just fine line ones. So in short, to kind of wrap that up, everything that would make a fine line tattoo age poorly would also make a conventionally done tattoo, such as a traditional tattoo, age poorly. It's pretty much the same shit, regardless of whether it's fine line or it's bold. So that is about it. If you guys have more questions about fine line tattoos that I didn't cover in this video and I kind of forgot to go over, then go ahead and drop them in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them. I just wanted to keep this pretty short because this is a pretty niched video and most people don't really even know what a fine line tattoo is. And if you don't know, then now you know. So thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.